It's been a while. Let's check in on the Jones family. Hey, Dad, can we talk? Marcus, where's Dad? He went off to brood somewhere, I think. Jennifer's searching for him. See, my original thought, because we don't know who the final uh, debate opponent is here. It is a secret. And, hmm. Yeah, my first thought was it was going to be debating against Socrates. But now I wonder, I feel like Socrates is going to get involved somehow. Now I wonder if the final debate we're going to have before we can leave the second time is going to be against Pythia. Socrates still comes to town, and it's Socrates and Ari versus Pythia to try and convince her to change her ways of thinking in the end. It's everyone banding together to finally convince her to change. I feel like that'd be the fitting outcome here. But we'll see what happens. Your mother's words really upset him. No kidding. Brood is not a word I generally associate with Dad. Yeah, that's a rough one that we hit here. That's a rough one. I guess everyone saw the fight. I don't know what to say. I'd heard some history from Pythia, but I never imagined what it must be like for you. How are you holding up? Bad. My feelings are complicated. Dad and Mom were always different. I love him, but I looked up to her, you know? When she first got into politics, I rooted for her, even if it meant she was away a lot. Thought she could make a difference. And now? I don't know. Dad and I have gotten closer, and she's just not the same. When we see each other, the cameras are always right there. Like it's more about appeasing the family values crowd than spending time with me. Yeah, that's... What about you? Is your family perfect? We've always been close, all my life. But, as he said to Locke, nothing is perfect. Got an older brother, Regis. He's probably more intelligent than I, if only. If only? What? I'm not sure what your life is like, but my parents, they had to make some hard choices. Was Regis, was the oldest. Regis was the one that was supposed to be sent to a fancy school. Even with tuition rates back then, my parents couldn't afford to send us both. Big brother wanted to make sure I had a shot, so he decided to enlist instead. Oh. Did well for himself there. Lieutenant General now. In charge of a whole division. Well, that's good for him nonetheless. That's a better outcome than I was expecting. There's a better outcome than I was expecting, because, even helped provide funding and security for our portal research, but he never wanted to enlist. Not originally. I just wonder what he'd be up to if things had been different. More options had presented themselves. I owe him so much. Can you imagine, Ari? You've benefited so much from knowing these philosophers. Imagine a world where everyone reaps the fruits of that wisdom. That's what Pythia wants, what she's been working so hard for, sacrificed so much for. We're close to achieving our dreams. I know. As much as I hate it, I should probably leave Dad to Jen. The sooner I get Mom out, the better. For all of us. I'll check on him later? Of course. Hi, Mom. Alright, I'm back. Pumpkin, how is he? Not sure. Jen's looking for him. Well, perhaps some distance is for the best. I know I was harsh. I was caught up in the moment, and he's always so cheerfully disconnected from everything. It drives me crazy. His notes were like Twitter. Every tweet hit you in the face. He can be a lot, but he's also grown a lot. Has he? Doesn't show it. To you? Have you given him a chance to? Honestly, this is just like the issue with politics. Everyone talks past each other. So your perspective hasn't changed, Ariadne Jones. I'll admit the debates have been interesting. Everyone here believes in the value of ideas. They listen and reflect. But then Mom reminds us how things work in the real world, which will never stop being depressing. Probably best we press on then. I've already prepared the next philosopher. You should present an interesting contrast to the others. All the philosophers so far have been pretty different. True, this one perhaps more so. What? Is he not human? Talking deer or something? Give me but a moment to retrieve him and you'll find out. This is... Yep, this has to be. Well, that's definitely a human silhouette. Lumber, who are you? Why are you standing in the shadow of that pillar? For too long, governments have been complicit in the exploitation of the working class. The world needs a hero who will speak the truth to power, who will put corporate fat cats in their place. Okay. Who's the Batman wannabe? I'm no Batman. Batman is a corporate fat cat. I'm the fearful whisperer in the boardroom, the bane of injustice, the start of the uprising against a corrupt, oppressive system. I am Karl Marx. Someone exposed the philosophers to Batman, and now here we are. Oh no. Oh, but I have to object. Marx is communism, and communism is an economic system.
Nonsense.
Oh wow, we're nonsensing already. You will not regulate me out of this discussion, Senator. State and economy cannot be considered separately. They are conjoined twins. They come into the world together, fates bound from the start. I see. Born in 19th century Prussia, Marx became stateless and traveled throughout Europe to spread the philosophy he wrote in Das Kapital, and later, the Communist Manifesto. His ideas became a flashpoint to the Cold War, with communism an ideological goal of the Soviet Union. You already have some familiarity with my ideas, impressions no doubt shaped through the lens of that conflict. I relish this opportunity to make my case anew, fight for justice once more. This should be interesting. Manifest your manifesto, Marx. When private entities control the means of production, the relationship between employer and employee is unavoidably unjust. Workers must sell this layer of labor in order to meet their basic needs, denigrating their humanity and value. Business owners use cheap labor to benefit themselves, accumulating more capital, privilege, and economic power. This accumulated power makes such owners the real ruling class, turning any system into an oligarchy of the bourgeoisie. So it's clear, we need communism. Maintaining communism requires rethinking government. Maintaining a government requires rethinking capitalism. Otherwise, all systems become mere tools for the bourgeoisie. Yeah, let's get the definitions, for those who don't know. Okay, can we review those terms, just to be sure we're on the same page? Oligarchy is a small group of people who control everything. Oligarchy of the rich means the wealthy are the true propertiers. Sounds familiar. Proletariat is the working class, those who sell their labor to survive. The bourgeoisie are the property and business owners who have the resources and will to purchase the labor of others. Oligarchy of the rich, bourgeoisie. So that's how it's pronounced? I always said bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie? Bourgeoisie? I always said bourgeoisie. It was amusing. Why did you correct me, Arbiter? It was amusing. That grin. Sounds like pasta. Bourgeoisie with cheese. Getting hungry again. Isn't that the canned pasta guy, Chef Bourgeoisie? Well, however those words are pronounced, my questions will be the same. Very well then. Ariadne, why don't we begin? Alright, what do you mean by this? Those who control the production of essential goods have unchecked power over the workers. If this were a game of chess, they would start with 3 times as many pieces. Bourgeoisie OP, please nerve. What? Nothing. Carry on, Marx. I'm willing to define my terms. Why won't you? Verify for him. Okay, fine. Game, something is OP, or overpowered but has an unfair advantage. A nerf is what you apply to make that something weaker. Like replacing bullets with nerf bullets? Do I have to explain what a nerf gun is, too? Ari, why are you such a freaking nerd? I see. Then yes. The bourgeoisie must indeed be nerfed. There's a screenshot. There's a screenshot for you. Back that up. You work for someone, your livelihood is in their hands. They determine how much you are worth and whether you can work at all. If they are kind with this power, the employer is in the dominant position. Obviously, the government does something like raise the minimum wage. The employers can say, you know what, I don't want to pay that anymore. Whether they're perfectly capable of paying it or not, I don't want to pay that anymore, so I will lay people off. And I deliberately understaff myself. And then, of course, the people who consume the products that you're producing go, wow, these selfish people want to be paid a living wage. Man. Might as well. How this relevant? It establishes how capitalism is exploitative and its very founding principles. Alright. Workers must sell their labor? What do you mean by this? Under capitalism, workers must sacrifice life and liberty to earn a living. This reduces them to numbers, to cogs, drowning their humanity in the icy water of egotistical calculation. What reasoning do you have to support this statement? Capitalism, if you don't work for those who control the capital, you don't eat. Even if you do work, you still may be unable to eat if your pay is insufficient. Workers have no choice, no alternative. They must grovel and kiss up for the chance to survive. What about when the pay is sufficient? Higher wages only lengthen the chain under the wage worker, relaxing the tension of it. They do not change the fact that the chain is still there. Yeah, it's been making a decent living. At what point does the fear of... Speaking as an adult who... Speaking as a single adult who gets by safely, which is... puts me in a very... in an admittedly privileged position compared to a lot of people these days, unfortunately. I'm not a high earner of any sort, but I'm big enough to survive as a single dude. And yet, at what point does the fear of the chain is there. There is slack in my chain, but at what point does the fear of waking up one day and having it all go away? At what point does that fear go away? I'd like to know. That fear is still there. Is this relevant? The imbalance in power is unacceptable, degrading, and humiliating. What do you mean by this? Forces of capitalism become more unbalanced over time, not less. Entrepreneurs will only acquire more wealth on the backs of their workers. Reasoning? Business owners do not return all the capital gained from labor to the laborers. No, a significant portion goes toward investments, expanding already expansive businesses. So they accrue more power and more ability to limit and control the proletariat. Trickle-down economics. Fair! Wealth doesn't obey gravity. Wealth trickles up. Because of course. So, principle you always hear about putting money back into the economy. You give it directly to... If you want to stimulate the economy, give it directly to the employees. The kind of people who will immediately spend it on the things that they would need and that would directly benefit them right now. Extra bit of security, fixing that thing that's been broken for a while that they couldn't fix because they had to prioritize rent and food. Give the money to the people who make the least. That money goes right back into the economy because they spend on the things that they had to put off because they don't make enough. Give that money to the fucking wealthy over a certain point, they just file it away and that money doesn't go back into the economy, it just goes back into their bank accounts and makes them richer. Hey, Marx is really setting me off today. How is this relevant to your overall point? It's established that the power dynamics of capitalism will only worsen over time, correct? What do you mean by this? with wealth comes power. Those with enough wealth can twist any system. See? See for reference, lobbyists can buy off politicians, pressure voters, or self-fund projects. They are the true decision makers. Money is power, representing the sum total of effort, able to buy comfort and influence. Money is power. Look at how many. Tell me how many fundraising emails have you gotten from either side of this race? Obviously, I'm not voting Republican. Fuck Trump and everything that his party stands for. But the amount of fundraising emails I've been flooded with from all sides of this election has been mind-boggling. How much they are desperately trying to get us to fork over like $5, $10, $25. And all the evidence they use is, the other side is billions flooding in. Your $25 can help us turn the tide in this race, I promise. Why the fuck do you need my money to win an election? When did politics become such a fucking money sink? It's distressing to think about, isn't it? Everything about this fucking election is distressing. The state of the world right now is distressing. But how am I supposed to trust anyone to look out for my individual financial interest, my well-being, my living situation when you're so desperate for my $25 just to win the election and get into power? I don't really have that for faith, but alright. Those with an excess of wealth use what they have to sway those around them, which in turn gives them more power. How is this relevant to your overall point? It shows how much capitalism distorts politics and government, are the key to my overall argument, I believe. Let's consult. So this is argument for communism, huh? I guess. Feels more like a takedown of capitalism. This is the foundation of his philosophy, Socrates Jones. Whatever you do, make sure you understand it thoroughly. After all, these principles will guide every discussion that follows. Right. This is definitely a press everything. What do you mean by this? Understand asking for clarity on longer statements, but this one is only 6 words. Could scramble them for you. Use some synonyms? No. I think I'm good. Back it up. This is the one that's going to move things along. This is not the natural conclusion of everything I've said until this point. Capitalism is the problem. It follows that communism is the solution. It follows, he says. Press relevance? Okay, hold on, Marx. How does this connect? You presented an argument that there are serious flaws in capitalism. I don't see how that alone leads to we need communism. Couldn't these issues be solved with, I don't know, appropriate regulation?
Nonsense.
Any attempt within capitalism to control the flaws of capitalism will inevitably be undermined by the bourgeoisie. They will use their existing power and influence to undo any limitation on their power. We can only prevent this by putting power entirely in the hands of the workers. Power of the working class. This would solve all the problems of capitalism. Yes. Only under communism can everyone's needs be met. Relevance revealed. Means production of properly owned, defends basic needs be met. What do you mean by this? A system that allows the business class to generate the wealth would instead belong to the people. Instead of wealth becoming concentrated at the top as in capitalism, prosperity will be equitably spread among all workers, each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. Back that up. Can there be any doubt that if we prevented the inequities of capitalism, society would be better off? We could guarantee every citizen the resources they need. The workers have nothing to lose with their chains. Communism must be implemented. But how? Excuse me? How would we distribute the resources and wealth as needed? All the goods we produce, they're concentrated in different places, right? One place produces shirts, another chairs, another makes bread, another catches fish. How do you get the fish to the shirt people and the chairs to the bread people? Ah. I mean, if we believe this system is better than capitalism, we need some idea how it would actually be implemented. What is complex, and trying to reorganize it even more so? Rebelling is easy. Governing is hard. Rebelling is most certainly not easy. Attempts to nail down and critique a specific implementation of communism are nothing more than utopian navel-gazing. You must understand the overarching issues in capitalism and how necessary the alternative is. So you're conceding you have no idea how this could actually work? No. I'm saying there are several ideas, thoroughly explored by my colleagues and successors. I shall illustrate one historical approach. Alright, rule of the proletariat. Those most in tune with the spirit of revolution must inform the Vanguard party to lead the people and defend them from class enemies. Council of Workers, chosen from qualified groups, will inform the Vanguard of what is best for the proletariat. All industry and trade will be nationalized, coordinated to meet the needs of the populace. The Vanguard Party will also be responsible for the political education of the public to dispel the cultural status quo taught by the bourgeoisie. Thus, a successful communist state will be established. You see, with a centralized government, we can distribute the goods and resources to those who need them. This course of action was implemented by Lenin as the founder of what would become the Soviet Union. Indeed, Lenin believed a clear rule of the proletariat was the only way to protect the workers from the emergence of a new bourgeoisie. Vanguard is an essential tool in establishing that rule. Although wasn't the original phrasing the dictatorship of the proletariat. That gives a much different framing to. Thought it best to avoid political trigger words. Marx, you are a walking political trigger word. Ooh. Trying to hide that you're arguing for a dictatorship isn't a good look.
Nonsense.
Dictatorship of the proletariat, you petty bourgeoisie. Petty bourgeois, not an individual. Absolute power, yes, but in the hands of the workers. How do the workers share this power equally then? Or would just new power structures emerge among the workers? I'd like to ask some questions about that. Very well. You can assume the mantle of Lenin for a bit longer. Let the navel-gazing commence. That is a sentence full time. What I've done to that. What we've already picked up so far. Oligarchy of the rich. Wealthy are capable of subverting any leading group. Only workers rights can be guaranteed by placing control of the system in their hands. Clarify. A core group must lead the fight to overcome the entrenched bourgeoisie. Lenin called this group the Vanguard. They are tasked with constantly inspiring and protecting the workers on their journey to liberation. So, an ideological scouting party. A fully armed ideological scouting party. What reasoning do you have to support this? Early on, any communist state will be delicate. Some must step up to defend it. No one actually protects the gains of workers. A new bourgeoisie will emerge to replace the old. Capitalism is remarkably virulent. Exploitation comes naturally for those immersed in its ways. So the Vanguard must counter. Material force can only be overthrown by material force. The deceit which the revolution will grow. The Vanguard, the first line of attack and the first front of defense. Alright, Council of Workers. From qualified groups. What are the qualified groups? Once the Vanguard has secured a foothold, they must seek guidance. Thus should come from a council restricted to members of the working class, elected directly from trade units and factories. Miners, farmers, cobblers, assembly line workers. Race car drivers, social media managers, game designers. Do they sell their labor to make a living? I think. Then yes, they too are members of the proletariat. Noted. Yeah. Give us game developer union. Input from all these groups will help create strong guidelines to protect the interest of the workers. Wait, this council exists to create the guidelines. What happens once the guidelines exist? That they exist, they must be adhered to, lest class enemies attempt to exploit the discord. Huh. Back that up. Vanguard's focus on organizing the revolution separates them from those working in the fields. Establishing a council is essential to ensure their efforts remain aligned. Explains that the revolution will involve the whole of the proletariat. Clarify this. Thus, Vanguard should seek input from all when making a decision. Once the decision is made, it must be adhered to. There is no longer room for questioning. The doctrine is set. Diversity in discussion, unity in action. Seems fair. What reason do you have to support this? Let him believe that the avenues created to empower the proletariat will become infected if not carefully and controlled. Discussion could be a tool for class enemies to reassert themselves, prevent conflicts that serve their own interests. Thus, anyone who publicly challenges the will of the people must be viewed with suspicion. That still seems really rife for, The Vanguard decides if someone is a class enemy challenging this will. Correct. How classy. But establishes how the Vanguard will evolve over time, cementing the will of the people with their will. Indeed. Verify? Nationalizing industry means taking production out of the hands of industrialists and into that of the state. Cutting off the avenues capitalists use to benefit only themselves, you can redirect those efforts to the benefit of the people. A nation is a large, complex affair. Where the state controls the resources, they can efficiently distribute them to the people.
Nonsense!
Oh, it seems bold to assume the state will be effective at managing resources. The Soviet Union saw famine and long lines during its so-called planned economy. Historical context is useful, but we should not be chained to it. Failures can be learned from. Technology has advanced much beyond Lenin's time. Still posit the state is best able to distribute goods as needed. Right, a state could learn from the failures of the Soviet Union. Mom? Sorry, Pumpkin. I guess I felt compelled to air some old Cold War beef. Old beef's kind of moldy. Yeah, it's... Yeah, that's obviously the old reference everyone makes when it's brought up, but there is there's a very firm counter-argument there that we can learn from it and change. Times have changed since the Cold War, and we have that historical failure to use as a learning endeavor instead of as a region of opposition. But yeah, this relevance is the question that prompted you to ask for a system, is it not? Here we establish how we will direct resources for the better of the people. Fair enough. Political education. Clarify? Capitalism is not just an institution of bureaucracy, it is an institution of our minds. Active efforts must be made to undo this sinister programming. Reprogramming people sounds awfully sinister in itself, Marx. That's the programming defending itself. That means teaching workers they have inherent value, that they shouldn't sell their labor to oppressors for a day of bread. It may be an uncomfortable process, but it is necessary to fix the damage immersion in capitalism can do. Staying out of this. The tradition of all dead generations weighs like a nightmare on the brains of the living. When immersed in an ideology, people begin to think of the principles governing the system as just and right. Hierarchies that are far from natural of class, race, gender, and more disguise themselves as such. Must all be dismantled. Labor cannot emancipate itself in the white skin, where in the black it is branded. The Vanguard must help the people identify these entrenched ideas and undo their effects. Right, communism and capitalism aside, there's so much that could be gained from keeping meddling hands out of the classroom and giving our kids better educations. It's the obvious matter of why the fuck are weird adults afraid of giving their kids like a proper sex ed? Make them just an understanding so they don't grow and develop and do irresponsible things that they don't understand because they were never taught anything in school, or fear it and develop really uncomfortable mindsets as they get older. It's not something to be afraid of, and in a more thorough, nuanced discussion of history, and right, like, yeah, we shouldn't hold our history up to that. We shouldn't hold our history up to we should be able to have a more nuanced discussion of history than the stuff that we were all fed growing up. Like, I agree outside of the context about, like, outside the context of communism versus capitalism, I agree with this sentence. We need to identify these ideas that are entrenched and undo their effects. We are spiraling very far out of control in this society. We need this badly in several aspects of life. So the last bit, the old system can be removed. Yes. Verify. If all I've described is accomplished, all major obstacles to a communist state have been demolished. Hastening. Steps I've described lead us to this end. First, we lead the people in a revolution. Establish a framework to protect the power of the workers, seize the resources of the people, robbing the capitalists of their ability to subvert them, and cleanse our minds of the corrupt hierarchies of the past. This way, capitalism will become the standard, no longer a precarious thing that must be defended at every turn. Establish a communist state in 4 easy steps. Relevance, one of our goals, where all roads should lead. Lenin's step-by-step flow of the revolution is fascinating. With Locke, I discussed how difficult it is for any revolution to result in the desired system. Lenin was trying to solve that problem. The question is, would any of it actually work? Well, given that this was proposed by the leader of a fallen empire, history probably illustrates at least one way it could break down. Well, he hadn't fallen asleep during Professor Velichansky's lectures. I feel like question here becomes... Oh, mark this, Marx. Mark what? What point are you trying to make? Well, guess it doesn't connect as well as I thought. No, it does not. Vanguard alone is responsible for enforcing the system. Yeah, working class. Listen up, Lenin. Don't. I am still Marx. I have no desire to participate in debate roleplay like the Arbiter. I wish only to represent my colleagues and not become them. feels like a lack of commitment. No, I can respect that from the top then.
Nonsense!
Marx, over and over you've said that power must stay in the hands of the workers. Well, Lenin's agents of the people are highly suspect. Everything workers want has to go through them. Vanguard supposedly interprets and enforces the will of the people from discussions. What limits interpretations that give them more power? The more they bankrupt Vanguard could straight up lie, smearing workers who protest as capitalist agents. No matter what they do, they have an excuse. It's all for the people, right? Destroy him, Adney. Mom Stanford, metaphorical violence only, please. But yes, well observed. Pfeh. Is that the extent of your remarks, Marx? Marx. Without any checks on power, Vanguard could demand anything. They could demand obedience. They could demand tribute. They could even demand you shave that beard. This dictatorship of the proletariat becomes a plain old vanilla dictatorship. Workers have no real power at all. These are all valid observations, Ariadne Jones. Conflicts we saw throughout Lenin's career, accelerating during the rise of Stalin. Leon Trotsky called this the degenerated workers' state, a state in which the working class's democratic control had fallen into the hands of bureaucrats. And of course he was exiled and assassinated for making such an observation. Worse still are distorted worker states such as North Korea, in which the worker never had any real control at all. Such bureaucrats see the world as a mere object of their action. Well, there we have it. Communism doesn't...
Nonsense.
You go too far, Senator. Seeing such failures as an indictment of all communist systems requires a reductionist view of the complexities of humanity and politics. It disregards the influence of specific individuals, environmental, or cultural factors. Plenty of democracies struggle. Capitalism has faltered many times, yet the petty bourgeoisie still defends such systems. Ultimately, though the structure Lenin created was ripe for abuse, there's a clear opening for oppression to take a new form. What systems can be iterated on, changed, while the core goals remain. Let us examine a different approach to the communist ideal, one starkly different from that proposed by Lenin. Advances in technology and automation have enabled workers to harvest a bounty plentiful enough that none would need go without. We are denied access to these ample riches only because it serves the interests of shareholders and middlemen. But all our advances are the result of collective effort. So production should be operated, but not controlled, by those skilled in the field. Goods and services can instead be governed by humanity's innate desire to provide mutual aid. Thus communism can exist free of any state. The economic goal is the same, but the structure couldn't be more different. Communism is the riddle of history solved and knows itself to be the solution. But there are many paths, trod and untrodden, we could take to our goal. This is the approach described in Kropotkin's writings, correct? Indeed. In The Conquest of Bread, Peter Kropotkin laid out the core principles of anarcho-communism. This approach is less implemented than Lenin's, though it is a central philosophy during the Spanish Civil War. Probably less implemented because it's somehow even less viable. We've come full circle, back to Confucius' dream of everything working out if people were just nice to each other. See, you didn't hate Confucius. He had some nice thoughts, but... You know what? Let's not repeat ourselves here. Go and ask your questions, Adney. Alright, here we go. Clarify? Kropotkin was referring to the advances of his time, the plow, the engine, irrigation. Each increased humanity's ability to produce 100-fold. Over the last century, technology has advanced even further. Automation, algorithms, the internet. Our abilities outpace even our own imaginations. We could easily provide for all. Reasoning? Right, provide for all, without worry of anyone losing out by equally distributing. Let's set some basic numbers. We'll begin with food, a necessity for all people. In the present day, humankind produces enough to feed 10 billion people, far more than the global population. There's no need for anyone to go hungry. As for housing, another necessity, most cities have far more empty homes than homeless. People are deprived of a roof over their heads only because landlords attach prices most can't afford. But if that's true now, the world's changing. Will we eventually exhaust our food supply and housing? Such has been predicted for decades. Our advances have always been greater still. Guess we can't really prove the future. It would be nice if he's right about this, though. Not this relevant? Establishes the abundance of resources that make anarcho-communism. Anarcho-communism, not anacro. It's not an anachronism. Alright, we denied access to these. Serve the interests of shareholders and middlemen. Yes, the rich. Clarify. Capitalism, those who control production are incentivized to throttle distribution. Better for them to hoard resources than to share them. Maybe they're stocking up for the final boss. Those who control production are the final boss. About a third of global food production is lost or discarded and unsold. See the videos of people just dumping unsold milk down the drain. Lost food will be a factor in communist societies as well, but as for food left unsold, these supplies are not distributed only because it would decrease the value for those who control them. Why give goods away, the executive says. Why give goods away, fewer people will buy them. Though their efforts are sources of wealth, by some strange spell are turned into sources of want. Artificial scarcity, huh? Some strange spell. Don't let the arbiter hear all this magic talk. The only thing worse than wizards, business wizards. And they're denied access to these ample riches only because it serves the interests of shareholders and middlemen. Relevance? That is why we have not already seen the elimination of societal ills under capitalism. The collective effort. Operated but not controlled by those skilled in the field. No matter what business owner claims, nothing in this world is the product of one person. Everything is built on all that came before, so it should belong to all, those most capable of overseeing production. The capitalists and liberals, Locke for example, believe owning something is the result of mixing your labor with it. Accepting that definition, can anyone truly say what they create is the result of their labor alone? All our efforts use technology and ideas built upon the collective efforts of the human race. We build products from materials gathered and refined by a long chain of individuals, transported on trucks, planes, and boats built by more. Well, theoretically everyone in that chain was paid with a contribution. Even when true, that amounts to a few coppers to demean us and justify severing us from the whole. All comes from all, so all should be for all. Alright, relevance? Shows why it is immoral on a fundamental level. Resources to be controlled by anyone. Anyone. Clarify. Mutual aid involves people coming together, freely exchanging and trading to meet each other's needs. Nothing restricting ownership, there is no need to compel or manage distribution. The required transfers will happen over time. Cooperation has always been key to our survival as a species, ingrained in our very instincts. Like it still exists to this day. There's still goodness in people. It's just beaten out of us and de-incentivized by this society that we live in. And the forces who put on the news that lead to us looking at our fellow men, judging them differently for everything. So everyone is known to have a right to everything. People can freely request what they need of one another. Blankets for the approaching winter, umbrellas for the rainy season, wood and bricks for houses. Luxury goods will be made through the free collaboration of various experts, like your video games and comic books. When people request something they need, they get it. If your own needs are provided for, why would you inhibit the needs of others? Because assholes exist. Maybe I just don't like them. Maybe they're a grouch who keeps pointing at me. see. And you believe that's enough to deny their well-being. So, my finger of justice will never falter. It was something strong, Crad, because before he poked someone's eye out. At least not without a good reason. Or not without being an asshole. You'd be the type of person who, brings, water bottles and shit, and then, brings the whole spread of cameras to take pictures of yourself. Standing by it. That's relevant to your overall point. Verifies what separates Anarcho from Lenin's model. Instead of the state controlling everything, the people themselves do. Peter Kropotkin, Vladimir Lenin. Both were communists, but they envisioned such different worlds. There are documented conversations between the two of them yelling at each other, in fact. Almost Lenin yelling at Kropotkin. Lenin yelled at many people. Now, shall we continue and see if you can find an excuse to yell at me? Okay, sure. Let's get our nonsense on. Hell yeah. You clarified this for me? The danger of Leninism was the state becoming tyrannical. There could be no better alternative than having no state. Reasoning. Everything up to this point supports this statement. Following the steps Kropotkin laid out, we can organize a communist society without a central authority. It's just that easy. Relevance? That is my overall point. Okay. Humanity's innate desire to provide mutual aid. It's going to be what, God, it's a killer thing, because if you slap that in our society now, you'll run into the crowd of people who are full-on, I don't care about those guys. If it, has a chance to grow and develop, it could be something beautiful. But if it's in not to be the Pythia of the situation, but in the real world, you slap this in here and expect 100% of people to act in the interests of mutual aid all the time, there are going to be a lot of very prudish and awful people who do not do that. Are you going to present this here?
Nonsense.
Yeah. Marx, can we review how business ownerships deal with excess production? Of course, they hoard the surplus. And why do they do this? Believe it better to limit the supply than provide goods to those who cannot pay. It's one of the major sins of capitalism. Humanity is a means, not an end. Sounds pretty gross. Absolutely not behavior you'd want to emulate. Pretty Anarcho-communism falls into the same trap. What? Marx, the ideal here is that no one controls distribution, that all necessary exchanges happen through mutual aid. It also means no one's checking the process, no one's making sure it's fair. Each and every transfer is individually negotiated. In all negotiations, self-interest is in play.
Nonsense.
There's no need for self-interest when the resources are abundant. When you have 1,000,000 blankets, what do you gain by refusing to trade one, or even 100?
Nonsense.
You'd honestly say, with all the random things that happen in the world, we'll never be short of something we need. Listen for an outbreak, fuel for an outage, baklava for a wedding. Well, actually don't bother. Because you established ample resources do nothing to stop such manipulation. When true scarcity is eliminated, people invent some to give themselves an advantage. Just like in unfettered capitalism, free trade is the secret core of anarcho-communism. With the same core comes all the same pitfalls. Nothing stops me from ignoring the public good for my own sake. Nothing stops me from holding up resources to get more out of my fellow comrades. Most damningly, nothing stops the emergence of a new bourgeoisie, one that subverts the system through clothes instead of through money. Kropotkin might just break the oligarchy of the rich, and break the oligarchy of the stitch. But Pumpkin, please. That wordplay was awful. You spent too much time with your father. You reproduce terrible wordplay on my own mother. Terrible wordplay, and yet solid arguments. Indeed. To share your assessment with Kropotkin at the next Communist Party. Capitalism's insidious roots are difficult to purge. Its resilience is almost admirable. So you admit it's the strongest system. Like an infectious disease. Resilient does not mean good. Tell me, Senator, even if capitalism remains the preferred system of the world, what will happen as machines replace more and more jobs? Manufacturing has long been dwindling. Soon trucking, farming, analytics, all will be automated. Would you condemn those who perform these roles to poverty? If they retrain for the fields, will those fields not be flooded beyond capacity? The supply of labor far outstripping demand. Production of too many useful things results in too many useless people. The burden passes to you, Ariadne Jones. Whether you want it or not, you must find solutions to the problems I described. We can no longer be so easily stripped of our dignity. Thank you for your time, Marx. Ooh, masks off.